Mike Callahan felt the tension at the construction site long before the call came, like sensing a storm in his bones. The skeletal frame of the house stretched against the pale March sky, roof trusses half set, like ribs waiting for skin. He stood with blueprints tucked under his arm, watching the crew move in rhythm with hammers and nail guns. The sharp scent of cut pine thickened the cold. His phone vibrated insistently. It was St. Luke's Medical Center. He assumed an error, but the nurse's voice was calm and precise. His father had fallen. Paramedics had tried, but it was too late. The words hit him like a plank dropped flat. He pressed the phone to his ear, numb. Outside, wind moved through the exposed frame, creaking softly. Mike returned to the crew. "My dad passed," he said evenly, tracing the blueprint lines with his finger. At home, the familiar smell of garlic and tomato sauce greeted him. Laura stood at the stove, her eyes searching his face. Ethan sketched quietly at the kitchen table, isolated in a pale circle of light. Mike told his son the news, measured, steady, and after dinner left for his father's house alone. There, he found a small wooden box on the dresser, carved with his name, "For Michael, when I figure out how to say it." He traced the letters, tested its weight, but did not open it. Not yet. The funeral home smelled of lilies layered over carpet cleaner. Men in dark suits shook his hand firmly. "Your dad was a good man." He showed up. He worked hard, true, safe, complete sentences that avoided deeper territory. At the cemetery, the casket lowered slowly with a mechanical whir and faint rope tension. Mike watched the earth receive it, imagining the soil settling like uneven ground beneath a foundation. He felt the reflexive urge to adjust something, level it, secure it. But grief was not lumber. There was no square to measure it against. That night, back home, he carried the wooden box to the kitchen table. The house was quiet. Laura had gone to bed. Ethan's door was closed. He lifted the lid. Inside were 27 envelopes, each addressed to him in his father's blocky handwriting. The paper was slightly yellowed, edges softened with time. He opened the first. It began simply. Ordinary details about work, weather, a broken fence post. But then the sentences shifted. "I don't know how to talk to you. I mean the right way." The confession sat on the page without decoration. "Love, Dad." Mike folded the letter carefully and reached for the second. In it, his father described the night Mike was born. A hospital hallway, the hum of fluorescent lights, a bathroom stall where he stood alone and cried quietly. "I didn't cry when my father died. I didn't cry overseas. But I cried that night because I didn't know how I was going to be the kind of man you deserved." Mike pressed his fingers against his eyes. The man he had known, precise, steady, rarely expressive, expanded on the page into someone uncertain, afraid of failing, afraid of softness. Letter after letter revealed fragments of a blueprint Mike had never seen. Fear disguised as discipline, love expressed through provision, silence mistaken for strength. "I don't know how to be soft without feeling like I'm losing something. I don't know how to tell you I'm scared without sounding weak. So, I keep my mouth shut. I fix what's broken. I show up. I hope that's enough." Mike sat under the kitchen light long after midnight, the hum of the refrigerator filling the space between sentences. He had thought he understood his father. Now, he wasn't so sure. The next morning, the construction site waited exactly as he had left it. Studs aligned, measurements clean, a world where effort translated into visible progress. But his mind lingered on the letters. He found himself rereading lines during coffee breaks, tracing the ink with his thumb. Each page felt like discovering a hidden support beam beneath a structure he thought he knew. Mid-morning, his phone buzzed again. The school. Ethan hadn't shown up. Anger arrived first because anger was clear. Anger had edges. Worry, by contrast, spread quietly and without shape. Mike drove home faster than he meant to. Ethan's backpack lay half open on the couch, papers spilling onto the floor. Shoes kicked off near the hallway. The television was off. The house felt suspended. Ethan emerged from his room slowly, defensive before a word was spoken. "You skip school?" Mike asked, voice controlled. "I didn't feel like going," Ethan replied, shoulders rising slightly. The words struck like a misaligned beam, small but destabilizing. Didn't feel like it isn't a reason. You wouldn't get it. The sentence hung in the air. You wouldn't get it. Mike felt something tighten in his chest. An echo. He had thought the same thing at Ethan's age. He had assumed his father existed in a separate world, unreachable, uninterested. He stepped closer. Then help me get it. Ethan looked surprised by the response, guarded but uncertain. It's just, everyone already knows what they're good at, Ethan said quietly. I don't. The confession was soft, barely audible. Mike opened his mouth to offer advice. Discipline, effort, structure, the tools he knew best. But the letters surfaced instead. I don't know how to be soft without feeling like I'm losing something. He felt the old instinct rise. Correct the problem, assign a plan, tighten expectations, fix it. Instead, he sat down. I didn't know either, Mike said, the words unfamiliar in his own mouth. Ethan's eyes flicked up. When I was your age, I thought if I worked hard enough, it would just show up. The answer. The thing I was supposed to be. And did it? Ethan asked. Mike considered the question carefully. I learned how to build things, he said slowly. But I didn't always know how to build conversations. The admission shifted something in the room. He thought of his father standing outside a bedroom door, uncertain whether to knock, of letters written but never delivered. I get scared too, Mike continued, the sentence heavy but steady. I just don't always say it. Silence settled between them, but it was different now, less sharp, less defensive. Ethan nodded slightly as if absorbing new information about a man he thought he already understood. Later that evening, Mike returned to the construction site alone. The half-built house stood quiet in the fading light. He walked its perimeter slowly, running his hand along the wooden frame. Structures required flexibility. Wood expanded and contracted. Foundations shifted with temperature and time. Strength wasn't rigidity. It was the ability to adjust without collapsing. Mike pulled one envelope from his jacket pocket, the last one he had not yet opened. Inside, the handwriting was slightly shakier. If you're reading this, I hope you've learned something I struggled with. I hope you've learned that saying the hard thing doesn't make you less of a man. It just makes you known. Mike folded the letter carefully. Back home, Ethan's bedroom door was closed again. Mike stood in the hallway, hand hovering in the air. This time, he knocked, not loudly, not forcefully. Just enough. The door opened, and instead of standing in the hallway, separated by wood and habit, Mike stepped through. Ethan's room was dim, lit only by a desk lamp, angled low over scattered sketches. Shadows stretched along the walls, long and uncertain. Pencils lay in uneven rows. Crumpled pages filled the wastebasket. Mike remained near the door at first, resisting the instinct to assess, to evaluate, to correct. What are you working on? He asked. Ethan hesitated, then turned the sketch pad around. It wasn't a finished drawing. It was a structure, abstract, unfinished, beams intersecting at strange angles, lines layered over erased attempts. Some parts were bold and confident, others were faint, as if the artist had doubted them mid-stroke. It keeps changing, Ethan said quietly. I can't figure out what it's supposed to be. Mike stepped closer. He recognized the tension in the page, the pressure in the pencil marks, the start-stop rhythm of someone trying to force clarity before it was ready. Maybe it's not supposed to be one thing, Mike said. Ethan glanced up. Mike sat on the edge of the bed, careful, deliberate. When we start a build, he continued, the frame looks strange at first, like it won't make sense. Then piece by piece it does, but not all at once. He paused. And sometimes we redraw the plans. The room grew still. Ethan studied the page again, this time with less frustration and more curiosity. Mike felt the urge to say more, to give direction, to offer a structured solution. But he let the silence work instead. Not the old silence, not avoidance. A listening silence. After a moment, Ethan spoke again. Were you scared when Grandpa died? The question arrived softly, but it carried weight. Mike considered lying. The old reflex. Protect the structure, stay solid. Instead, he answered, yeah. The word felt exposed, honest. I was scared I didn't understand him as much as I thought I did. Ethan nodded slowly. Mike looked around the room, at the unfinished drawing, the scattered drafts, the evidence of trying. He realized something steady and unexpected. Nothing here was broken. It was in progress. He stood after a while, not because the moment was over, but because it didn't need to be forced longer. At the doorway, he paused. "I'm still figuring things out too," he said, "but we can figure them out in the same house. Not perfectly, not all at once, but together." In the kitchen, the wooden box still sat on the table. 27 letters had once filled it. Now it held only air and the faint scent of old paper. Mike placed the final envelope inside, not as something unfinished, but as something received. For the first time since the call at the construction site, the tension in his chest eased. Structures could shift without collapsing. Conversations could begin without certainty. And sometimes stepping through the door was enough to change the blueprint.
This is just a glimpse of Mike and Ethan's story letters, silence, and what's left unsaid. It's about generational silence, hidden truths, and the quiet ways fathers and sons misunderstand each other. Click the link in the description box to read The Inheritance of Silence and uncover the rest.